Hello, I'm Raul with the Catch Wrestling Alliance, and where we try to help you elevate your grappling, and together we keep real wrestling alive. Thank you to our guest Cindy. She's been training in catch wrestling, but we're here at UCLA at the university, and so there's ample opportunities to train in jiu-jitsu, right? And we have jiu-jitsu classes, we have a jiu-jitsu club, and we have a lot of people doing jiu-jitsu, but we do have a catch wrestling class here. But you've been able to do like a lot of different like jiu-jitsu practice as well, right?
Yeah.
And but you've been really trying this past year to like focus on the catch wrestling, right?
Yeah.
Okay. You're here to kind of tell us about what you've kind of learned in a year of catch wrestling.
Yeah. So I've dipped my toes in like several gyms, like Pedigo Daisy Fresh, Cayo Terra, and now like 10th Planet HQ. And I feel like a lot of what I do in catch wrestling definitely enhances my grappling performances in jiu-jitsu gyms. So yeah, I'd like to go over like some of the things I've learned.
Yeah. And so you've kind of prepared a list of things, right?
Yeah.
Why don't we go over the first thing, right? It's okay to be vulnerable. What did you mean?
So the way I frame these things like a silly like life lesson type thing, but it is okay to be vulnerable, because in BJJ, at least what I've learned, like one of the first few times I grappled, I think it was like kind of in the wrestling principle was in me to like go into turtle, and the first thing she said to me was, "You gave me your back," and I was just like, so like, is it the end of the match? No. And so it's okay to expose your back. It's not the end of the world. It may be like 4 points to them in IBJJF rules, but like that doesn't mean the match is over. It's no reason to give up or like completely give up your game. Because in catch wrestling and wrestling, it's rather the opposite. Like it's a sin to put your back to the mat. And like I've heard someone say, like just like how guard can be like your method of attack, so can turtle. Turtle can be like your method of attack. You just have to learn how to utilize it, get out of it, attack from there. So it's completely okay to have a different mindset from everyone else. Like even if it may be someone thinks it's disadvantageous to you, it can be advantageous to you, just how your frame of mind.
Yeah, and actually, it's interesting that too, because so a lot of people like, or I think a lot of jiu-jitsu schools are really IBJJF oriented, or in their mindset, and kind of like the way they even structure even like the entirety of their school, like their curriculum and all the different belts and stuff. So then they're thinking like, oh, don't give the back, and that's like a mortal sin, and definitely the match is going to be over soon, because not only are there points, but you're definitely going to lose by a rear naked choke or something. But it's not exactly the case, especially if you're not even like if catch wrestling, it shouldn't necessarily be the end of the world. But even just regular amateur wrestling, there's a lot of techniques to get someone off of your back. The giving your back is actually the defensive position. But with that being said, actually, you had a submission only match just recently, right? Where you like, so it was submission only, and they had the Eddie Bravo overtime rules. So Cindy was put in a position where she had to escape the back mount, right? So someone had the hooks in and the seatbelt, and whoever could escape faster, or if you got submitted, you would lose, right? But you won, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you didn't feel uncomfortable when someone was on your back, right?
No. I mean, people take my back all the time because I'm used to exposing my back, and it's just like, so I'm not under much pressure in those situations.
All right, that's great. So I think that's another like really important thing, where it's like, if someone does now like take your back, it's not like you're feeling stressed out or whatever.
I just cycle through whatever I can, like what I know from there, for sure.
Awesome. All right, let's go ahead and see your next point here.
Building onto that, like the next point was like always looking for new opportunities, and like people might think like, oh, it's completely over like once your back is taken, but you're gonna get RNC'd out, like, but just because you're exposing something doesn't mean like your opponent is completely invulnerable. Like from catch wrestling, I've learned like the more untraditional BJJ things like wrist locks and like toe hold. Like they're putting their appendages in front of you. Those are completely vulnerable and out in the open, and so those completely work for me and get me out of the situation and put me on the offensive. Like recently, I rolled with someone at an open mat, and I went for a Kimura and a toe hold when they were on my back, and the only thing they told me was like, I've never been wrist locked or toe hold held from like a back take. I always thought I would get the RNC. So always looking for new opportunities and like trying to look at things from different angles.
All right, that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think what people don't realize is, I think it's ingrained in the jiu-jitsu mindset that, like, that's like the finishing position, and so then they fully commit, right? Like, they got their legs wrapped around you nice and tight, they got their arms wrapped around you nice and tight, but especially one part of the seatbelt, one of their arms is going to be under your armpit, and that if you can separate that grip of the seatbelt, they've put themselves really into a deep double wrist lock position. So yeah, they're fully committing to the potential of getting submitted with either the double wrist lock, or sometimes even just reaching down and get the toe hold. It's very, very effective because they're so committed to really wrapping themselves around you.
Even if you don't get the submission, at least you're posing yourself as a threat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They start feeling some pain, or they
might let go, and you might reset, or like put yourself in a better position. So yeah.
Yeah, they'll definitely be scrambling. Yeah. If they escape, they're scrambling to escape. So then you could totally be at the advantage to set up whatever your counterattack will be.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything else you want to add to that, or?
No, we can move on.
Okay. All right. Cool. So the next one. The importance of consistency. Oh, actually, no.
Yeah.
That wasn't it. Build and strengthen the fundamentals.
Yeah, so like I think just like with any skill you want to like pursue in life, you gotta build like the fundamentals. You gotta start somewhere. And some of like the first things I've learned in catch wrestling that don't really go over in BJJ is like driving, bridging, and sit outs. Like time and time again, like these movements have shown up in like different techniques, different movements, escapes and counters, which are really important. And if you don't have a strong foundation, everything else will crumble. Like going back to that recent sub-only tournament, and not to toot my own horn, but I had a 3-second escape from spiderweb. Why? Because I had like a really strong foundation in like bridging and like being able to like escape and pull my arm out, but I wouldn't have gotten to that point if I didn't do catch wrestling.
Yeah.
For
those who might not know, that spider web is what, like the I don't know if it's only 10th planet only terminology, but if you don't know, it's like you have to start in the armbar position, and you can even grab the thigh. So it's like and then whoever can escape, or if the person who has the advantageous or the spider web, they can win if they get the submission. But yeah, it's like they're kind of hoping that you can stay flat right on your back, and then they can even lean over and like really break your the grip of you trying to resist that armbar. But they couldn't because you're using your leg power, using your bridge.
Yeah.
And so you're able to get the space, and then you're able to get the arm out.
Yeah, and I think that's I don't want to say, maybe one of the more critiques of BJJ is that you're expected to stay flat and like be in a more passive position, whereas catch wrestling you're a little more dynamic with like bridging, maintaining top pressure, maintaining pressure overall, like being able to sit out, being able to bridge and create an arch. But like, yeah, I think I like that about catch wrestling. It's a little more dynamic, it's not as passive, or you're always maintaining at least pressure.
Yeah. No, those are the things. Like even jiu-jitsu, they'll say like, oh, we have some bridging, but quite often it's only onto the shoulders, right? It's not like a full bridge where you can even kind of use your head to create a nice like arch with your whole body.
I mean, like they say, your head is a fifth limb.
That's right. So you got to be using it, right? Cool. What's the next thing that you found?
Well, you touched on it a little bit earlier.
Oh yeah, I said
The importance of consistency. And this isn't applicable to just grappling, but maybe like athleticism or anything else in life. So I trained here at UCLA in like the LA area over the academic year, but I went home for the summer, and that's where I stopped catch wrestling because they just don't have it in San Jose. And I trained at another gym that they didn't have consistent quality of training, and they didn't have consistent sparring time. So I really saw my grappling regress when I came back for the academic year to grapple. And I noticed like the most improvement when I'm able to consistently and frequently train like catch wrestling and whatever with new people or people that I'm comfortable with, having consistent sparring time, always learning something new. So
yeah, sorry you had to experience that. Yeah. We wish you lived closer to LA, or we wish you just lived in LA, right?
Yeah.
All right. So yeah, no, it's totally true. Like you gotta not only, because you even touched on sparring partners and stuff, so you definitely gotta find like people you feel comfortable with, a gym you feel comfortable at. Not only where it's like because there's a lot of like coaches that maybe are very knowledgeable, but they could also be like very negative, or have, and that like the coaching style is like super important too.
Yeah.
So, I think maybe that's why you kind of notice a regression where like a lot of these important things weren't getting fulfilled, right? Satisfied. Yeah. All right. So, what's the next thing that you found?
Comparing myself to others, I mean, in social media, life, comparing yourself to others isn't good. I used to compete like before I started grappling, and like comparing myself was my downfall. It still is my downfall. Like stalking my opponents' Instagram or asking around about them did more harm than good. And it only created like unnecessary expectations and pressure on myself to perform. And I found that when I knew absolutely nothing about my opponent, which was a sub-only tournament, like I did my absolute best. But when I knew about my opponent, it created like expectations like, oh, I think she's like a really aggressive fighter, I shouldn't shoot. Or like, oh, she's younger and lighter than me, I should win. It created like these unexpected or unnecessary expectations and pressures on me that like only hindered my performance. So, only focus on your own game. Don't focus on your opponent's game. Yeah, don't compare yourself.
Yeah, no, that's a great point, because you never know. Like, you could totally we're our own worst critic, right? So you would probably shut yourself down more than the other person shutting your game down. So yeah, it's like you're kind of like the person who defeats yourself first.
Yeah.
So yeah, try not to exactly stick to your game. Not necessarily even game plan, but it's like what you've been learning. If it's more of a wrestling based thing, you can stick with that and still succeed in jiu-jitsu or whatever you whatever you choose to compete in. But like actually, little side thing. So you've done like point jiu-jitsu tournaments, right? And then also sub only. What's your perspective on but what would you prefer, like sub only or point?
I prefer sub only. That might be controversial. That might be a hot take, but like I prefer sub only rather than points because. Period. That's it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it just shows more technique and like, did you really have the upper hand like in points? Like, did you really have the upper hand? Like, just because you were able to pass me or sweep me, like it doesn't show that you had the advantage over me. Like you weren't able to finish anything.
Yeah, I'd say like they're coming from a wrestling or catch wrestling background. If your whole game is based off of being in the defensive or the referees or a turtle position, you can still submit that person. But if it's an IBJJF tournament and you only have a short time period for the whole match, you might give up points. And actually, I remember I did win an IBJJF tournament in Singapore, and but it was because I was one of the persons who was helping coach me was here at a IBJJF school and was telling me like just get a takedown and then stay on top of the guy and you'll win. And so actually I used that strategy, and so it wasn't necessarily like the prettiest win, but that was the thing. I was able to get a takedown, stay on top of the guy, and then the time ran out because it's such a short time period. So anyway, that's like it. While it can show some kind of dominance, right, you're not showing like you're really going for a finish, right? Which is even in catch wrestling, it's like catch wrestling had no time limit because you go until someone wins, right? It's like you want to see an actual finish, and points don't show that. Or gaming the system, like how I guess I kind of did for the IBJJF one, where you get the takedown and then just wait, right? So yeah, no, I'm really proud that you went and you won in sub only, which is I think way more legit because no points. You have to beat the person.
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. Anything to add to that, or?
No, we can move on.
Okay, cool. All right, what's the next one?
Controlling the things that matter. So, like, again, like in life, like you can't control everything. You can't control what your opponent does and however your opponent's gonna be their skill level. But like, not everything's out of my control either. Like, I control everything about myself, my breathing, my training, my reactions, but I can control everything within like arm's reach too. So like learning how to, I mean, at least from my experience, I found that the BJJ people are very afraid of hand fighting. They're very like afraid of touch for some reason, but like wrist control, ankle control, or controlling the hips, those are really important. And that's, I feel like, going back to that point about back take, they're completely exposing their wrists and ankles in front of you. Like, they may have your back, but they're leaving out the things that matter. So, like, controlling their ankles, controlling their wrists. And I think you made a point. Like, I might just leave it up to you to elaborate. But you were like something about how matches where there was no ankle control. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Was it like recent ones, or was it just like?
In general.
Oh, yeah, I think it might have been something where it's like a lot of times if you go online, like Instagram, you see all these highlight footage,
Yeah.
right? And then most of the time it's like someone who's, we're not saying they don't know good technique, but usually when they're doing a highlight technique on someone, the other person is kind of just there, right? They're not actually getting wrist control or like grabbing the ankles or controlling the other person's head. They're kind of maybe scrambling without any real like purpose or technique, so they can't shut down the other person, and the other person is then able to just totally get some kind of highlight sub on them, right? So, was that kind of what I was talking about? Yeah. Quite, if you look at it, so anybody who's watching or listening to this, check it out. You'll see like the person who gets subbed or pinned or whatever. Oftentimes they're not, and this, it does, with regards to pinned, this also kind of happens in amateurs wrestling, where they're not really getting that wrist control, which would definitely be available a lot of the time. They're hitting switches and not getting wrist control. They're hitting all these different wrestling moves, then they get countered. It's because they didn't get any control over the other person. They're doing their counter move, but without blocking the other person, and then the other person's free to get their highlight reel technique.
And generally, if you have like wrists, ankles, hips, like you control everything else.
Yeah.
Yeah. So control what matters, and everything else should fall in line.
Yeah. And then I think it kind of goes. That can go back to your other point about like not worrying about so much about like how. Like maybe even if your opponent is well known, and it's like if you're able to block a lot of their attacks by controlling the head, controlling the wrists, etc., they're not going to be able to like do their game on you, right? So I think they all your points kind of can have like a through line.
Yeah.
All right. So what was your next discovery?
It's actually the last point, but it's like it kind of goes back to the point of consistency, but the importance of like a good, healthy environment. And this is where like the quality of instruction, the quality of well, maybe the quality of the gym may not matter too much, but like the quality of instruction and partners is really important. And I used to think to myself, like, how do you know if a gym is good? I had to find that out the hard way. Like over the summer, I went to a gym that I didn't really like. It was the most pristine gym ever, like giant mats, cleaning every hour. But the instruction was not great. There wasn't live sparring. Just maybe it was just me, but like the instruction didn't go work with me. And I've lead like unsatisfied, unmotivated, like kind of wanting to drop out of grappling. But I've been to like the most hole in the wall gyms, and I feel much better there. Like, cause it's just because like the people there and the instructors there like really make or break your experience. So like having good quality, and encouraging, motivating, a very healthy environment is really gonna make or break your experience. So I think it's really important.
Yeah. That it's super duper important, right? Right. Yeah, so you're getting like the whole mental aspect, satisfied, and a lot of times, yeah, you just need a mat, right, or something. It doesn't have to be the fanciest. Ideally, like it's clean, that they clean it. But yeah, if you have good people to train with that you trust, and everyone's trying to learn and improve. That's super important. And then if you have like an instructor who cares about people learning and they're positive, that's like a major thing. Hopefully people like who are listening to this don't necessarily think, because I try to bring up the whole idea about coach being positive, because even scientifically, I guess there's a lot of research on coaching, especially nowadays, and like the slave driver style of coaching has been shown time and again for different sports to be the least effective and the least successful style. So it's like if you come from someone who's like yelling at you to do stuff, your career, even if you get some wins, statistically speaking, you will probably like still have maybe more losses, or you won't be as like have a winning record as someone who's in a environment that they really enjoy, where everything's really positive and everyone like wants to be there, and they don't feel like they have to be there, and they're subjugated by the coach and stuff. It's like that's ultimately not the ideal way.
Yeah, like I've in another sport at least, I've had like the drill sergeant type of coach, and all that really does is like makes you dread practice, and it makes you hate being there, and it makes you like look at the clock and like, when am I gonna leave? So I don't want to be in an environment like that. You're not gonna thrive in an environment like that. Anyone who says that they do best under pressure is probably a little bit of masochist, but you can't thrive like that. You're not gonna feel good. I don't know why it's preferred, but I think it's just best to have a positive type of instructor.
Mm. Yeah, you might not know that that's like what you need, but you need it. And then if you feel like that's not what you need, then think about why you think that way, right? Because it could be some other things that are going on where you feel like you have to have someone yelling at you, and instead of encouraging you and helping you figure out how to be a better version of yourself. Yeah, so are you going to continue with catch wrestling?
Of course. Of course.
Yep, you're like, this is the end.
I'm out. Go time to write my book.
Yeah. Exposing all the secrets of catch wrestling. You're gonna start your own catch wrestling academy then?
Yes, back in San Jose.
Yeah. All right, cool. Well, so right now, I wanted to mention, UCLA. So we have a lot of people who are doing jiu-jitsu here. You and I, we also go train at 10th Planet headquarters and stuff. How has your experience now that you've been training for a while? Like, how is it when you're kind of rolling with people here or at 10th Planet or?
The most starking difference, the difference between like rolling with catch wrestling people and the difference between rolling at BJJ people. I'm more tired rolling with catch wrestling people. There's because the matches are more dynamic. There's a lot more possibility to get pinned or submitted, but that's besides the point. I forgot the question.
Oh yeah, what are some of the differences you've seen? And
Oh, right. Definitely sometimes our ideologies clash. I remember like one of the instructors at 10th Planet HQ, they were like, "Why are you always going belly down? Like it's a sin to expose your back." And he truly, hopefully, like believes in that. But like that's where our ideologies clash a little bit. But he, rather than like telling me like you're wrong, he'll just be like, "If you're gonna go belly down, at least make it a tight turtle," So there's that, but I feel like definitely just catch wrestling exposes a lot more new opportunities that jiu-jitsu doesn't. Like, people really don't expect me to whip out the double wrist lock on them when they have my back, and they really especially don't expect like a toe hold. So I think catch wrestling has just opened a lot more doors for me. I mean, you can argue that it's closing some doors because you can't play like guard and whatnot, but I feel like guard and whatnot is just not realistic. It's not very advantageous. Like, it's not realistic to fight on your back. You're not gonna go in a self-defense situation and like gonna lay down. And especially in MMA, it's more disadvantageous to be on your back because that's when you're gonna get,
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's good that you brought that up because if you didn't bring up the MMA thing, I would have brought it up where it's like now it's like it seems like that is what's happening if someone does get taken down. It's like they are going to like turtle, then getting to like the tripod, and then standing back up because you don't want like not only the like if you're lying on your back face up, you got the gravity against you because the person's on top of you and then raining down strikes. It's like much more forceful than like even like punching like everything's going downwards. Your head is getting hit, and then if your head gets you get two hits, right? So the one from their punch and then the one from the mat. Like so, you really don't want to be face up.
And I think we've talked about this before, but like wrestling is starting to be like one of the predominant martial arts of MMA fighters. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like maintaining that top pressure is like really important in that top position.
Yeah. I think it's finally being recognized, right? Like, because what people don't really know. Hopefully, this isn't like controversial or whatever. Because if you look up the history, it's like UFC was started as like a promotional thing for jiu-jitsu, and so there were many people who were not allowed to compete that might have won who came from a wrestling background. But now, like all these years later, now it's like the reality of how advantageous wrestling is in MMA situation is finally being kind of recognized, which is great. But catch wrestling would be an even more dominant way of approaching that because you have like the submissions baked in as well, so you can always like throw someone down or control someone with like these different wrestling holds, like the double wrist lock and stuff. So I would say like catch wrestling still gets a little extra points for that.
Plus, it's fun to submit someone.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. And the whole idea is like we're not even thinking about like, oh, I'm getting 4 points for passing or whatever, 4 points for the back or 2 points for passing or whatever. Yeah, it's like so you don't have to worry about that. And even in NCAA, right? I think the takedown is like 3 points now, so it's like they're it's becoming like this speed and points game. So catch wrestling doesn't have that, and unfortunately, some people are trying to add points to their version of catch wrestling, which totally makes it like amateur wrestling, not catch wrestling. So it's like if we want to tell you're doing the real thing, it's like it's not points. You're really trying to finish somebody when it's catch wrestling. All right. Okay, cool. Any other insights, or we'll have to do another installment later?
We might have to do a part 2.
Okay, cool. All right, so then we look forward to you just like getting better and better.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, cool. So All right, so just check us out on our YouTube channel. And this should be available like on audio, like any type of podcast platform should be on there. Thank you for listening. If you want to support us, go ahead and go to our website, or you can support us on our YouTube channel. You can become a member. We put a lot of extra videos and stuff on there, so we appreciate any support because it just goes into having more and more events. So thank you, and we're trying to help you. And if you have someone here who's their grappling has been elevated, right, and it just continues to get better, and together we help keep our favorite sport, catch wrestling, alive.